Day 1. I woke up to the sharp grating beep of my alarm clock, 7 a.m. The sound felt louder today, almost invasive. I slapped it off and lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling a gnawing sense of emptiness. Sophie's side of the bed was cold, not surprising but still jarring. The faint scent of her perfume lingered, taunting me. I closed my eyes, trying to shake it off, but the memory clung like cobwebs. The shower was lukewarm, the water pressure weaker than usual. As I stared at myself in the foggy mirror, I noticed something strange. My reflection didn't quite match my movements, just a fraction of a second off, like an old film reel skipping frames. I dressed mechanically, grabbed a stale cup of coffee and paused at the kitchen counter. The cracked photo frame, Sophie's smiling face, frozen in time. I left the apartment, locking the door behind me with a loud click that echoed longer than it should have. Outside, the city was bathed in a gray, muted light. Clouds hung low, pressing down on the streets. The air was thick, heavy. People shuffled past, heads down, faces blank. At the cafe, the barista handed my coffee without a word. No smile, no acknowledgement. Her eyes looked wrong, too wide, too dark. The walk to work felt endless, every step dragging. I noticed the same man in a brown coat stumble over a loose brick at 8:12 a.m. A child let go of a red balloon at 8:17, bursting into tears as it floated away. I made it through the day in a haze. The office was eerily quiet, no phones ringing, no chatter, just a hum of fluorescent lights there flickering above, making shadows dance. My boss's door stayed shut, and by the time I got home, a headache pounded behind my eyes. I locked the door, collapsed into bed, and prayed for dreamless sleep. Day 2. The alarm, 7 a.m. My eyes snapped open, same harsh beep, same cold side of the bed. I sat up, heart pounding. Something felt wrong. I forced myself through the motions. Shower, dress, coffee, photo frame. The crack seemed deeper today, like it had widened overnight. Outside, the world looked dimmer. The clouds were darker, the air heavier. The same man in the brown coat stumbled at exactly 8:12. The same child lost the same balloon at exactly 8:17, but now, no one reacted. The cafe was silent. The barista's smile was gone. She stared at me, unblinking, until I left. Work was worse. My coworker, Sarah, stared at her computer screen motionless. When I called her name, she turned slowly, her head jerking like a broken doll. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her voice in my head. "You shouldn't be here." I backed away, knocking over a chair. No one reacted. When I got home, the door was already unlocked. I didn't remember leaving it that way. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. Day 3. The alarm, 7 a.m. I smashed it against the wall, the sound of shattering plastic oddly satisfying. The cold side of the bed felt damp, sticky. I didn't check. I skipped the shower. The mirror didn't feel safe. Outside, the sky was a deep, sickly yellow. The man in the brown coat tripped again, but this time he didn't get up. Blood pooled around him, dark and thick. People walked past, their feet splashing in it without a second glance. The child's balloon burst mid-air, a sharp pop that echoed down the street. The child didn't cry. He just stared at me, eyes hollow and accusing. At the cafe, the barista wasn't there. The counter was covered in something wet and dark. I didn't look closely. I ran to work. The office was empty, every desk abandoned. Lights flickered overhead, casting long, twisting shadows. When I reached my desk, a note was waiting. "Stop running." I fled. The streets twisted, folding in on themselves. I turned corner after corner, but every path led back to my apartment. When I stepped inside, someone was waiting. It was me. Day 4. The alarm, 7 a.m. I didn't move. My body felt heavy, weighed down by dread. The apartment was silent, oppressive. The walls seemed to pulse, breathing in and out like living things. The photo frame was gone. Outside, the streets were deserted. The sky was black with no sun in sight. The buildings were crumbling brick by brick. As I walked, I felt something following me, a shadow that flickered just out of sight. Every time I turned, it vanished. At the cafe, the lights were out. The air smelled of rot. A cup waited for me on the counter. Inside was a key. I grabbed it. My head began to spin and suddenly everything went dark. The final day. The alarm never went off. I woke up in silence, the kind of silence that presses against your skull, deafening in its emptiness. My heart was already racing, the sense of wrongness thick and suffocating. The air felt heavy, like it was laced with static. The walls of my bedroom were warped, pulsing like they were alive. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ceiling, dripping something dark and viscous. The faint scent of copper filled my nostrils. I swung my legs off the bed, but the floor was soft, almost fleshy. Each step squelched underfoot. My stomach churned, but I kept moving, drawn by a pull I couldn't resist. The door to my apartment was gone, replaced by a gaping black void. The key from yesterday buzzed in my pocket, cold and vibrating like it had a heartbeat of its own. I stepped forward. The air shifted, cold, razor sharp. The void swallowed me whole, plunging me into darkness, and then light. A single swinging bulb hung from nothingness, casting harsh, flickering lights on the figure standing before me. It was me, but it wasn't. Its face was a grotesque mockery, features stretched too wide, skin pale and taut, eyes hollow black pits that seemed to drink in the light. Its smile was a jagged slash, revealing teeth too sharp, too many. It cocked its head, the movement jerky, unnatural. "You're late," it said, voice layered with mine but distorted like a broken radio signal. I tried to speak, but my throat clenched shut. The air grew colder, burning my lungs with each breath. "You finally remember, don't you?" It took a step closer, the sound of its footsteps wet and sticky. "You killed her." Memories crashed into me, sharp and unforgiving. Sophie's face, twisted in fear, my hands around her wrists, the way she fell, slow motion, silent except for the sickening crack when she hit the bottom. The other me leaned in, its grin stretching impossibly wide. "This is your punishment." I backed away, but the void pressed against my back, cold and unyielding. What do you want?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pounding in my head. It laughed, a hollow grating sound that echoed endlessly. "Want? Oh no, it's not about what I want, it's about what you deserve." The walls of the void began to close in, the darkness seeping into my skin, crawling under it. I tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed whole. The figure stepped forward, merging with the shadows until it was inches from my face. Its eyes bored into mine, endless pits of nothingness. "You'll relive it every single day." It reached out, its hand cold and clammy, fingers digging into my skull. A sharp pain shot through me, blinding and all-consuming. Day 1. I woke up to the sound of my alarm. 7 a.m. The room was silent. The cracks on the walls had vanished. The air was still. Everything seemed normal. But I knew better. In the corner, barely visible in the dim light, it stood, watching, smiling, waiting. I didn't move. I couldn't. This was my life now, my sentence. And the worst part? It had only just begun.